This call is now being recorded.
Bebop boop DePaul Radio. Hey, and a happy Friday to everyone. How's everyone doing? Tony, what's up, man?
Nothing much.
All right, it's another Friday here, another beautiful Friday on the DePaul campus.
Yes.
On the 7th of July in the beautiful year of 1995. We got a few things to talk about, Tony, and there's festivals all over the place. There's beautiful weather. There's sunshine. There's girls running around in skimpy outfits. There's bands playing. You walk outside. You can smell the barbecue, feel the hot sunshine. It really is special to be here in Chicago this time of year. And Tony, you know how all through the wintertime that we're like bracing the cold and walking outside on campus here between buildings and just walking all over the place. It's kind of like, you have some winter days that are just fine. If it's 30, I'm okay with 30 as long as it's not snowy or sleety. But like when it gets to be like 0 or negative temperatures, how bad is that to be getting around? Except now it is gorgeous.
Yes, it is.
So let's start out again. I'm Dale Rose. We got Tony Scrode here, the Tony and Dale show. We are here for you all through the summer, even though classes are out. And let's talk about. I just want to start off with a little bit of sports here. We don't talk a lot of sports, but there's certainly nobody looks to be close to winning a championship. But the White Sox are pretty good. The Cubs are pretty good. The Blackhawks are really good. The Bears, well, they made the playoffs last year with their new coach. We'll see. No more Coach Ditka, which is too bad. I moved here and no more Coach Ditka. I just like to laugh at him, to be honest with you, because he's such a big mouth, asshole. But whatever. But the Bulls, of course, we knew that the big story, it was so cool, man, when I moved here and to find out just immediately that Michael Jordan is coming back. And I'm like, wow. Like, so cool. Now, he is back. Him and Scottie Pippen, Tony coached the team. They did not get to the finals this year. It was the Orlando Magic and Shaquille O'Neal, the biggest, one of the biggest men on the planet, 7'2", 300 pounds. So him and the Orlando Magic, they lost the Houston Rockets in the playoffs. We'll see what the Bulls can do next year. I'll tell you what, though, they could really use a guy like a rim protector, a defensive guy to get rebounds, a guy to sort of do all the dirty work underneath, maybe a guy that's got multiple colored hair and tattoos and is very in touch with his sexuality. I guess I'm looking right at Dennis Rodman. It'd be nice if they made a trade. We'll see what happens, but he's a guy I think that's going to be a free agent and going to be available. I'd really like for them to go out and get him. I think that could really help the team push them to being a championship team again. All right.
Nice.
And by the way, I did go see a Cubs game. I've gone to see a Cubs game since I've been here. I've seen a White Sox game. Tony, I don't know if you've gone to both places yet. And the United Center as well, which is, of course, where the Blackhawks play and the Bulls play. I've basically seen everything except for the Bears. It's cold. I don't need to go see a Bears game in frigid temperature. But have you gone to see like a ball game yet, or gone to the United Center?
No.
Okay.
I can't afford that shit, and I'm not really into sports, except maybe I like the Bulls. I start following them, but as far as that, I'm not really. My ex was, but I give a shit. She used to give me shit because I didn't like sports like a dude. She was more into that than me, so.
Yeah. Well, I've gone to see at White Sox Park, whatever the name of the actual stadium is. I've gone there, and it is a kind of a pleasant experience. There's good food. It's a little cleaner than Wrigley. It's a more modern stadium and stuff. It's even though there's not the sort of drunken atmosphere that surrounds Wrigley Field on the Cubs, with all the bars around that area. Basically, there's people just stumbling out of the bars going right into the ball game. By the way, as far as the price, I did get into the bleachers for, I believe it was $5 when I got in there. So it is technically, you can, if you don't mind sitting way away from where the action is, it's not that bad. But anyway, both experiences for me, good experiences. Wrigley, of course, historic. I had a really good experience going to see the Bulls recently, which I would highly recommend to anybody. And the Blackhawks too, man. The Blackhawks are a draw. Jeremy, I'm trying to think of their big players. They have Chelios, this guy named Chelios, I think Chris Chelios. Jeremy, God, what is Jeremy something or other? He's a big, I think he's a big scorer and stuff. He's a good. So they have some good players. They're a very good team. But anyway, if you get a chance, go out and see the White Sox and the Cubs while they're playing. Immediately want to get away from sports and get on to movies, which is a bigger topic for us here at the show. Tony, man, big movies out right now. It's a blockbuster summer. Lots of movies out right now. Lots of movies still coming out. We've talked about a few of them that have come out in recent weeks. Now, Batman Forever is one that you and I have seen recently. And look, hopefully this is not an omen of things to come, no pun intended, in the movie industry this summer, because Batman Forever, man, I can't help it. I thought it sucked. Val Kilmer, Chris O'Donnell, fussy little white prick asshole. I can't stand him. Jim Carrey, great as the Riddler, but him and Tommy Lee Jones. But I don't know. I almost think that the villain should have led the movie instead of the heroes. What do you think?
Well, I thought the only good thing about it was Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Tommy Lee Jones, I wasn't feeling as Two-Face. Definitely not feeling Val Kilmer and Chris O'Donnell as Batman and Robin. It just was like, I don't know. It just seemed like a huge, like big sets, colorful, but just didn't make a lot of sense. The script sucked. Yeah, it just sucked. Yeah.
So hopefully, now these are the films that are coming out. We'll also talk about the films that are out right now, but Clueless, Alicia Silverstone. This is about to be released in the month of July. Actually, coming out later on this month. Man, she's a hot commodity. Talk about you remember her from the Aerosmith videos.
Yeah.
And there was some other movie where about a babysitter or something like that, where she was trying to seduce the babysitter, or I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever movie that was. But anyway, she's hot to trot. She's got a movie coming out here pretty soon. Also, Tony, have you heard Kevin Costner, of course, big time star, one of the biggest movie stars out there right now. Him, Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Trying to think if maybe you could still include Schwarzenegger in there. And Mel Gibson, a few other guys. Just talking about actors. Now, there's some actresses I'd like to see have some more roles, but for better or worse, Waterworld is a huge. They are up to, or they passed, I believe, $200 million that they spent on this movie. They have to make $200 million just to break even.
Right.
And I don't know if this movie's going to do it or not. We are not privy to being a part of any pre-screenings or, we're just a small time DePaul radio here. We're not big time media, but do you have a feel for this movie? Do you think this is going to be any good? Are you looking forward to it? Are you a Kevin Costner fan?
I liked The Untouchables, but nah. It doesn't look any good. It's like they're trying to do a dystopian Road Warrior, Mad Max, but nah. It doesn't look very good. I don't care. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't really caught my eye either though, this summer yet, so we'll see.
Yeah. Speaking of big time, so a couple of movies out with some of the biggest actors going still. Talk about, you can certainly still include Sylvester Stallone in that list. And he is playing I Am the Law himself, Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
Have you seen this movie? It just came out.
let's see. Yeah, it's just a bad. It's just bad. Judge Dredd's a good comic book. I got into it because of the band Anthrax. Interesting. And it's a good comic book, but man, sometimes you just can't remake everything. Like you don't need to touch it. And it's one of these things where, especially as Stallone, I don't feel him as Judge Dredd. And, yeah, I don't know. He just sucks.
Well, I don't know if you caught the reference I threw in there, but the Anthrax song is I Am the Law, which I mentioned, that was written about Judge Dredd. Another of the biggest actors, probably the biggest right now, fresh off of 2 Academy Awards, is Tom Hanks. And I can't help it. I don't want to see Apollo 13. That's a big movie that's out there. It looks boring as hell. Just astronauts sitting out there in space. I don't know. I mean, do you want to go see this? I don't know anybody that's really revved to go see this, at least our age.
I mean, maybe when I was younger, I used to be into NASA and the military and law enforcement and all, but now it's, I don't have much of an interest. Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't look very interesting to me. I don't know. I didn't find anything. Like I said, nothing's really caught my eye that makes me want to go to movies unless, somebody takes me, but yeah.
Gotcha. Also, the Brady Bunch movie. Do they really need to make a movie about the Brady Bunch? I can't imagine. Like it seems to be hard. They're doing a lot of that these days, where
60s, 70s
sitcoms made into movies.
Right. I actually have to say, I like Penelope Spears. I believe she's the one that directed it. I have to say, it actually looks funny. I think it's a comedy, and it kind of, I think.
Well, it better not be a horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. The cast is pretty good. The guy who plays the dad, I've seen around, in the comedy circuit. He's from around here. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hit or miss. We'll see. I'm excited. I like Addams Family. I like what, she did with that movie. So maybe this will be funny.
Yeah, Addams Family was a huge hit as far as a TV show turned movie, as well as you mentioned The Untouchables earlier. That was technically a 1950s, an early television show, turned into that. I don't know if there's any real connection to the show besides just the title, which does happen as far as movies just taking the titles of either earlier TV shows or songs. There's a lot of times you just say, brown-eyed girl. Let's make a movie about a brown-eyed girl. I don't know.
Yeah, I have to say, in general, so far in this whole decade has been, I haven't seen a lot of great movies. Nothing that's really been too spectacular, or I don't know. It just seems like
in the 90s.
Yeah. Nothing that's really made me really freak out. The Dazed and Confused movie was kind of funny. Yet again, another movie, a period piece, I don't go to the movies much, and I don't really watch any TV because I don't pay for cable. So if I go to somebody's house, maybe I like the X-Files show. But yeah, maybe it's just not my focus. I like going and doing things, and especially being here, man. You know what I did like is I like that 7 and what's the other movie? It's a sci-fi movie with Bruce Willis. Fifth Element. Good movies, but for the most part, it's just the shit they do on TV. It's like there's a cop show that's like a musical. That shit drives me nuts. There's just, and as far as movie goes, it's like the Batman thing was a joke, and they just, they can capture what happened, for the last, two Batman films. Yeah, it's hard, man. I'm real finicky, like with film, because I'm just like, this better be good, like.
I'll tell you what, a couple of 1990s movies there's a couple that have come out of my favorite movies of all time. Number one, 1990s Goodfellas, Martin Scorsese, maybe my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
1994 is The Shawshank Redemption. Another one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. I actually think the 90s so far has a little bit of an edge over the 80s. I think there's been some very good movies. I'll tell you what, that's a future topic for conversation as far as comparing the decade's only halfway through. Actually, I'll tell you what, Pulp Fiction came out last year. I would put that towards the top, one of my favorites movies. I think that movies are they're getting back to in the 80s, a lot of the independent movies were just horror movies.
Right.
Like the Evil Dead movies we liked, and there's some other smaller independent films. But in the 90s, there's been a whole influx of independent films, I think, that have been great. I like pretty much anything that Johnny Depp does. You mentioned Bruce Willis. I'm not a huge fan of Bruce Willis, but he's way at the top as far as some of the top movie stars.
Right.
But anyway, topic for another show. I definitely want to revisit that. But as far as what's coming out today on July 7th is a movie called Species. Now, this looks very interesting. I want to see this movie. It's out tonight. I don't have plans to see it tonight, but I don't know. Maybe if you want to go, I'd be game for going.
Why not?
But it's got, I think the theme is, I don't know if it's like a lab created different monster species or species that morphs into like half human. It's half alien or something. I really don't know, but it looks good. It's got a real hot chick playing the main character. This isn't a male killer species. It takes the form of a female. So we'll see how it is, but it looks really good.
Nice.
Okay, let's transfer into music right now. Of course, it's the summer of music. All kinds of new releases. There's all kinds of concerts going on that we're going to talk about. First of all, something that was in the news is the rock opera Tommy, which was made into a musical, closes after nearly 900 performances. It's been out there for years and years. I think it originally debuted in the late 70s. And my mom went to see it. Oh, I loved it. I loved Tommy the musical, and I gotta say, like, it's my parents, all these guys, they love this shit. Like, I love the Who, I do, even though Pete Townshend's a weirdo. But I can't. Tommy is like my least favorite Who album. They really kind of lost me. I love Who's Next. I love Quadrophenia. I love the Who Sell Out. The Who by Numbers. There's a lot of better albums I think they have than Tommy. I don't know why everyone's so fixated on that one Who album. It's got Pinball Wizard on it. I mean, yeah, that's an okay song. Musically, I think so, but lyrically, the whole thing about a deaf, dumb, and blind kid playing pinball, I just don't see much of a story there. What do you think of that? Did you ever get into that album or the Who in general?
I like some of the Who, but no, I don't. Like I said, I turned off by musicals and operas and all that shit. Like, I don't need to sing. But no, like I said, some of the shit, like, you don't even need to touch. I never got into Tommy. I'd heard some stuff, but I just didn't. It's kind of overhyped. I think Pete Townsend is he's just he's given too much credit. Like, I don't think he's that great. I like some of the stuff. I'm one of those weird people. I like my favorite Who albums are like the last two from the 80s, and then I like that one first solo album of Pete Townshend's. Other than that, it's, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't care. They're not one of the bands that, you know. Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about some new stuff that was actual new releases, some new CD releases that we have. One of them, I got to tell you, man, my dad just bought this record. I live with my dad in Fullerton and Clark, like right around this area in a high rise. He's gone. He's a business traveling salesman. He's on the road a lot. It's great for me. I mostly get the place to myself like half the time. But yeah. He bought this, and he gets great. He got the last Pearl Jam record. He's gotten the band X. If you remember the band X, he's bought Rat before. Right. He's bought like all kinds of stuff. He likes Slayer and Metallica. He bought the Black Album. So he's got a really eclectic taste in music, besides jazz and acid jazz and old blues stuff, Ella Fitzgerald. But he got the new release from Pink Floyd. It's a live album. It's called Pulse.
Yeah.
It's got the most annoying thing. It's supposedly it's one of a kind and it's never been done before. But on the side of the disc, you know how like he lines his disc up. He's got this whole entertainment system, and he lines the discs up right next to each other, and it's basically just the outside of the disc showing, or the side of the disc that shows the title of the disc and the band is what shows. You kind of look through and go through the discs like that. On that side of the disc is this little pulsing red light. And it's constantly, and like, it's in the living room and it's right above the TV. And I can't tell you how many times I'm watching TV and that light distracts me.
Right.
And it's like, I know someone else too that got it and like, I wish I could turn this off, but you can't. It constantly flashes this red light at you. It's the most annoying thing. And by the way, Tony, do we need another live Pink Floyd album? Every album, they release an album and then a live album right after that.
Yeah, I stopped giving a shit about Pink Floyd after they stopped doing anything with Roger Waters. Like, he's kind of like, for me, I never was one of those people that got into them pre-Roger Waters. I heard some of their stuff, but they just, to me, sound like generic 60s band. Like, when they really start, like, really getting, like, just amazing and into their own is all throughout the 70s and, up until, the Wall even if it was commercial, still had a lot of great songs, great concepts, like, Works is really good, Wish You Were Here, Pigs on a Wing, or Animals, but their shit in the 80s and all that with just David Gilmour, to me, it doesn't cut it. And then, like, it's sad when you see, constant, like, best of albums being released and live albums. And it's like, dude, that means you're just being lazy. You're trying to, like, just make some money. And it's like, you gotta go earn that shit, dude. Like, especially it's Pink Floyd. It's like, you guys are great. Like, write a fucking album. Why do you need another live album? Like, we know, man. We know.
I accuse Eric Clapton of doing that all the time. Want to know why? Because he does it. He milks. He's got a reputation. It reminds me of like a brand. You know what I mean? Like a brand that creates a name for themselves for being a high-end product.
Right.
Like that. Or like, and then what you do is if you sell that brand and somebody else uses that name to sell a bunch of shit that's lower quality, but they have a high price and they expect people to buy it because of the name of the brand. Eric Clapton, to me, exemplifies that, where he just came out with a record last year. My dad's like, hey, new Eric Clapton album, man. He got it. And I look at the back of the album, and you know what it says? Crossroads, song number 1. Born Under a Bad Sign. It's nothing but like Muddy Waters songs and Willie Dixon songs. And I'm like, how many fucking times have you done a blues cover album?
He mooches, when you hear people get, especially like when you hear black artists get pissed off at like white artists for stealing shit. This guy is the biggest mooch of the blues and black music more than anybody. It's like you don't have shit. His first hit was like I Shot the Sheriff, which is a fucking Bob Marley song, which should have been the real, hit here, but it took a cheesed out, Eric Clapton to make it a song, a familiar song. He just sucks, man. I can't stand Eric Clapton. He's just a punk. Like, he's generic and he mooches. Ugh.
Yeah, some people might argue that Jimmy Page is a bigger appropriator of black music, but those guys,
the
differences are, yeah, he is, and at least he's got Led Zeppelin to his credit, and he wrote millions of guitar riffs. But yeah, I agree with you. Eric Clapton sucks. Okay, now we talked before about Tupac just had a big album out.
Right.
Biggie had one too. We've talked about different rap wars. We've got a rock war brewing. I don't think there's gonna be any gunshots fired, but we'll see. But there's 2 new albums out. One by a band that you and I really like is Soul Asylum and Grave Dancers Union. Their last album, great. I mean, they had been a hit in Minneapolis for years, part of that sort of roots punk movement in Minneapolis that was going on.
Right.
The Grave Dancers Union, of course, what was that song with they had the video with
Somebody
posting all the kids?
Oh,
well, no, the kids. You've seen this kid lately.
Train?
Runaway Train. Great song. Great video. It's just supremely heartfelt. It just breaks my heart when I see that video.
Right.
But you mentioned I Need Someone to Shove.
Right.
One of the greatest intro that the grandfather watches the grandfather clock. I love that line. And a great intro guitar riff. And of course, Black Cold, White Pride. They're talking about racial divisions going on in our country, especially in the Midwest. They were from Minneapolis. Anyway, they have a new album out called Let Your Dim Light Shine. I've heard a little bit of it so far. I'm not really a fan of it compared to the last album. But as we know, the singer, I can't even remember, is it David something or other? He's going out with Winona Ryder. He's really, by the way, like, some people accuse Eddie Vedder of going Hollywood since Pearl Jam blew up. I know that Kurt Cobain has accused them of going Hollywood. Some people, Kurt Cobain's called everyone basically a sellout except for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But he accused Alice Chains of being a sellout because they signed to Columbia, even though Nirvana signed to Geffen Records, but whatever.
Yeah.
But this guy, the guy from Soul Asylum, has gone Hollywood, and he's really become a sellout of my eyes. And he not only is he dating Winona Ryder, she's a pretty good actress. Maybe she's cool to hang out with. I don't know, but I know that he's pissed off out of all people, Les Claypool, who's another band that we're highlighting. Primus has a new album out called Tales from the Punch Bowl. I think it's really good. Their first single, Winona's Got a Big Brown Beaver. Now, the Soul Asylum guy is saying, hey, you wrote that about Winona Ryder because she's been around Hollywood.
Yeah.
She's dated lots of guys. You piece of crap. I hate you. And he's on this huge tirade against Primus. And the guy came out and he says, I don't give a fuck about Winona Ryder. It's not even spelled the same way. Winona Ryder is W-I-N, and Winona Big Brown Beaver is W-Y-N. It's not about...
It's kind of a common name, too. It's kind of, it's pretty normal name.
That's the point of him being an egotized sellout, is that he thinks the world revolves around him in a situation. Even Winona Ryder has come out and said, dude, he's up. Like, this is not...
That's what I was saying. That's what I... Like, she's not
Jesus
even...
Jesus Christ, man. Can you wake the fuck up for the show? What the hell is that? Dude, get him another coffee.
Right. She doesn't give a shit and is able to see that, it's just to play on, to name, play on words and all that. But
I get you.
Yeah, some of these guys shouldn't talk, or artists shouldn't talk. Like, they should just, write. I mean, you do what you want. But, like, if you don't want to be embarrassed or, come off like an idiot, like, sometimes you don't need to, like, say anything. You don't need to reply to MTV News and It's
Yeah,
pointless.
that's the thing. If you put yourself out there, it's one thing if it's for like a good cause. I mean, that's the thing is that dude's put himself out there for some good causes before that I agree with. But of all the causes anyway, I think we've said our piece, but, Soul Asylum dude, you were a thumbs down right now. Now, another new release, you and I are big on this artist and this record that's been released. I think it's going to be, I think we're both, dubbing this like one of the big hits of 1995, I think, is Bjork's new record called Post.
Yeah,
we've
so
seen,
good.
How about it, man? We've seen the new video, Army of Me. This is going off of her first record, which had Human Behavior on it. I'm a big fan of that album as well. Just she works with some really good artists. There's some good musicians in this. Have you heard parts of her new album yet?
I heard the whole thing. I listen to a lot. I like it. Army of Me, just an amazing, like, great beat, great production, and then her singing. I've liked Bjork since she was in the Sugar Cubes and in the late 80s. It's just unique and has a different perspective on how she makes, how she writes stuff and sings and her themes and like the sounds, everything's different. She has, she does swing to, techno to, hip hop beats, trip hop beats, just subtle singing. She's all over, man. I think she's like, right now, I think as far as like techno music or, the dance club scene, she's like the queen. She kind of makes, Madonna look pretty pathetic. She's just so talented. Just in little, she's tough too. She doesn't give a shit. She's pumped.
Little and cute, yeah. But I'll tell you what, this is a part of a trend in music that I love, is that the 80s pop music reigned supreme. Obviously, there's metal going on, heavy metal, hard rock, glam metal, a little teeny bit of blues mixed in there. I only say that because I love Robert Cray. Put out one of my favorite albums, Strong Persuader of the decade, Stevie Ray Vaughan. There's some guys bringing back blues music, but a trend that has really hit in the 90s that I love is 80s underground bands that are becoming mainstream in the 90s without losing their integrity. And if you notice, you just mentioned the Sugar Cubes. Bjork, I'm going to put her in this group, in that she was in a sort of an underground band in the 80s that was really good. Now in the 90s, she's hitting the mainstream, but she's not compromising anything. And it reminds me of the Pixies in the 80s.
Yeah.
In the 80s, the bass player forming the Breeders in the 90s.
Yeah.
What's her name? What's that girl's name? The bass player for the Kim Deal or Doll?
The Kim Deal. Yeah.
Kim Deal. And I'm trying to think of some other, like the Replacements were a big band. Paul Westerberg has gone solo. Some people accused him of selling out, but I still really like the single soundtrack that he was a huge part of and some of his solo stuff. In metal, you can also look at, there's a band I loved called Forbidden that turned into Machine Head in the 90s, a very good sort of speed thrash, I don't know what you'd call them, speed thrash metal, something like that, maybe a little bit of death metal. But there's a lot of these bands from the 80s that were, not to mention the fact that Metallica was underground in the 80s, have blown up in the 90s. It's a part of this trend that some of the best stuff from the 80s is finally making it out there into the mainstream, and at least for the time being, kind of pushing pop shit and boy bands. I'm glad I don't hear anything about New Kids on the Block anymore. Milli Vanilli's been destroyed. I'm trying to, like, even Madonna. Nowadays. Well, even Madonna has transferred from doing like a Virgin stuff to erotica. There's a big difference between those two records.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. She's adapting, and like she's getting different, producers. Like I like Madonna stuff. She's done, I like the erotica and some of the newer stuff she's done. I think she's, maintaining. She's not douching out yet or whatever. she's trying to, you know, adapt and do new shit. So.
All right. So one of our favorite bands from the late 70s, one of everyone's favorite bands from the late 70s, early 80s, who's been debunked now for about 10 years, the Police have released a live album. I'm sure this was probably just a part of their, maybe it was a part of their record deal. They had one more record left on there. For whatever reason, they have a live album, which prompts me to ask, should Sting have just stayed in the Police? Now, I know that the drummer for his solo band is a great drummer. But man, Stuart Copeland, how could you not want to work with that? And supposedly those are the two guys that butted heads. Andy Summers is a great guitar player. I just liked everything that the Police added to whatever his songs were. And it seems like Sting did this just because he wants to be a dictator and say to Stuart Copeland, like, no, I don't want you to add anything to what I'm doing. Now, go ahead and weigh in with whatever you got here.
I just, I think Sting blows, the best stuff he's ever done is with the Police. Stuart Copeland's like one of my favorite drummers of all time, like an amazing guy. A true drummer, like he takes it to the next level. Like I saw he had a special on PBS where he recorded with his tribe, and I forgot what country it was. It was a tribe in a country in Africa, and man, can't remember. But he was recording, and like all these different sections, and they broke it down, and then the science behind the sounds and the rhythms and all, and it's just like fascinating. Like the dude's super intelligent and a true artist, and then also, adding like education and science to it. And, he doesn't have the ego. He just wants to play. You can tell like they were like enjoying everything, but Sting, like his ego is just, it's like God, and they control everything. It's like, so you had a great thing. You had 3 great albums, all hits. To this day, Police, the album or the music is so good that it's like you could put them together today and they could go on tour with like a band of now, like any alt band, a rock band, they could still hold up and it would still be fresh, because their music was not, it came out in the 80s. But it's still relevant today. Like their whole thing is they were one of the first bands that like introduced, different styles and broke the mold with combining, reggae and a little bit of jazz and like of course rock. Like they wanted to be a punk band, but they were hard enough. But they weren't just a rock band. Like, and their whole background's interesting. They didn't go to LA. Like they stayed in England and just blew the fuck up. Yeah, like, Sting's a fucking idiot. Like, it's his fault. Like, they'll probably try to do a reunion and, the money will be there, everybody will be back, and then Sting will fuck it up. And it'd be like, what the fuck? And it's just a waste, It's like, they could have continued throughout the 80s and put out more albums, but no, like I just said, like live albums and best ofs are just trying to keep your product going, but it's like pushing out money that has no like gold behind it. It's like it doesn't matter, man. Who cares about a best of Police? You're introducing a new generation. If you just fucking put out a new album, fucking bullshit.
Yeah, a new album by kind of a brand new artist that just came out. We're going to talk about her more in a minute too when we get into the Taste of Chicago. I really like the new, I guess it's pop music, but it's being billed as alternative. I don't think it's alternative, but the new album by an artist called Alanis Morissette, it's called Jagged Little Pill, and but what I've heard of it so far, I really like it. Musically even, she's got some good musicians she's working with. The drummer, I think, is really good that I've heard on this record.
She hooked up with a guy from, like, Full House.
Right, that's the first single, right? Is based off of their relationship. You Ought to Know. It's what's weird. I was thinking about her going down on him in a movie theater, I guess, which is part of the lyrics. But there's that's a hot new song, man. I heard that song and I'm like, this is pretty good. She's a good singer, got a very good voice, and other songs on the record too. I predict this is going to be a big seller. And there's something different when we talk about. There's still pop music with hints of other, the biggest artist going right now is Hootie and the Blowfish. They certainly have hints to country, and maybe a little bit of R&B. The singer's got a little bit of a R&B voice, kind of a baritone, like a deeper voice.
Right.
But I don't know. I really like this, and of course, we can't forget about your favorites, Blues Traveler. The Horde Tour is a tour that has like, the newer age, like stoner rock groups, akin to like the Grateful Dead. And we've talked about, and they are a little bit annoying, Blues Traveler, but what do you think? Would you go see the Horde Tour if Blues Traveler was,
No, that whole scene I get it, I'm just not into that. Just not my thing. It's like, they're all from like, and them and like, you can include Dave Matthews, like they're all in that jam band, hippie, they kind of just take the idea of the 60s and 70s and then add, whatever, but, roots music, blues, whatever the fuck. They're just kind of like, taking the whole idea that the Dead came up with years ago. You can say that about Fish too, but it's just it's kind of just lame. But if it's your thing, it's a thing. What do you do? But it's pretty cheesed out, and I just can't get into it. It's just an opinion. It's just a taste thing. It's like food. I don't give a fuck about that shit.
Well, you know what? I mean, I agree. Like the Dave Matthews Band, I don't know what it is I hate about them so much, but I do. And I don't like we even joked about their use of horns, how cheesy their breaks are and their bridges in their songs. And I can't stand numero uno douchebago Dave Matthews. I've heard him speak recently. It's some political show, and he just was just horrible. And he's speaking over himself and mealy mouth, doesn't know what he's talking about, brings up references and uses metaphors that don't fit. He's just an idiot. He should not be. He's ruining his brand by putting himself there and talking about stuff like that. There's plenty of people, and you mentioned Jello Biafra before from the Dead Kennedys. There's plenty of people that should be talking about politics. Maybe Michael Stipe from REM. So all kinds of groups that have people in them that know exactly what the hell's going on. Dave Matthews is not one of them. I'll tell you what. One of the stoner rock groups that I find to be very good, I'm a big fan of, and I know you're a bigger fan of the 80s group, camper band Beethoven. I really dig Cracker, man. I think they're a good rock band, and I think that the songwriting is very good. They're a band that I believe was on the Horde Tour that I would go see.
Yeah.
That leads to the last new record that we're highlighting. It's a band, Tony, I know you're not really a big fan of these guys, but as far as an 80s band, I was always a big fan of Dokken. Very good musicianship. To me, if anybody could be like a poor man's Van Halen, instrument by instrument, Dokken is that group. George Lynch was one of the few competitors to Eddie Van Halen's throne in the 1980s. Jeff Pilson was a backup singer that could rival Michael Anthony, who was, again, a great backup singer. Mick Brown versus Alex Van Halen, I think there's a comp there. And while Don Dokken doesn't have any of the theatrics of David Lee Roth, he's a much better live singer and just a better singer in general. And by the way, I've seen Van Halen before, and I know you have too. David Lee Roth sucks live. He sucks.
Whoa.
I don't care to see him dance around. You know what I mean? What I want is for him to sing the songs. And what I notice is that he's doing a lot of woo, woo. He's doing a lot of those woos, and he'll do like a flip and a hair flip, and then he'll put the microphone into the audience. He'll let Michael Anthony sing all the backup, but he doesn't focus on the singing. Like he's too just, and that's what I liked about when I saw Dokken is that Don Dokken focuses on the singing. I'm there to hear the songs, not to see him dance. This is a rock show. This isn't like going to see the Rockettes or I don't care to see legs. Yeah, once in a while you want to do a flip, you want to jump off a banner on the stage, you want to do a high kick, great. But David Lee Roth cannot sing live, and to me that's a big downfall of him. And when I'm talking about, you can compare a lot of bands to Van Halen, you and I do, because hey, they're one of the biggest bands of the 70s, 80s. They're still going today. But anyway, Dokken Dysfunctional, the new album is out. I've heard some of it, and it's good. It's heavy. There's some double bass, some good guitar riffs. I say go check it out.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Mr. Scroat?
Yeah, I always thought Don Dokken was like one of the lamest singers. I liked George Lynch. I liked when I was younger, but I kind of just stopped caring after the 80s. Yeah, I kind of always liked the performance with Van Halen. I liked all that shit. I think he can sing. I thought their live shows were great. I saw David Lee Roth in I saw him on a Skyscraper tour, and I saw him during the Eat 'em and Smile tour, and I liked them. I haven't seen them recently, but yeah, I thought they were great. I thought he was great. I like Steve Vai. I saw Van Halen as a kid, and they were really good. But I guess like whatever you're into,
Yeah.
I just thought Don Dokken was kind of just overrated, and they should have just called the band George Lynch, because he was just the better musician. The other guys
Bigger draw.
Yeah, I thought the other guys they're decent, they're just like I didn't find anything unique about them, whatever. Van Halen, on the other hand, it's like Alex Van Halen does a great drum solo with Flames. Michael Anthony's amazing. Bass player, gets crazy.
He is not an amazing bass player. Anthony Michael Hall.
Pretty good.
He is not an amazing bass. He's an amazing backup singer.
Yeah, he's a good singer. I thought he's a good bass player, real solid. Yeah, just the other guys, I like, David Lee Roth's band, Billy Sheehan, Steve Vai's amazing. Greg Bassinet's like a really good drummer, and, he's got a history of, with jazz. I guess his dad's a jazz great. But yeah, I don't know. It's all opinion.
Yeah.
But,
well, that's why I introduced them as the poor man's Van Halen. We're talking about Dokken.
Right.
But, well, I didn't think we'd spend that long talking about Dokken, but, and the difference is with David Lee Roth, I didn't say he can't sing. He can sing on the albums. He chooses not to sing live. I can't stand singers that constantly put the microphone out to the audience to sing. Like, I didn't pay to hear the audience. I could go to a fucking karaoke show if I want to hear other people sing your music. I'm paying a ticket to hear you sing your songs. And if you're confident about your voice and your singing skills, you're not going to do that to the audience. You're going to sing it yourself. And every other time he opened his mouth, it was like one of his little screams. Like, you don't need to do that every other word. Sing. And actually, Eddie Van Halen came out and said himself and said, I'm getting tired of him during the live shows not singing. Every time we hear the live stuff back, it's him just dancing around, probably to try to take the lights off of Eddie Van. Every time the lights go on to Eddie Van Halen, he starts to try to do a dance move. Just sing the damn song. Every once in a while, like I said, you want to do a kick, you want to do whatever, but I think he's a pretty lame-ass live singer. Very good studio singer, but anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Van Halen's definitely better than Dokken. I'm not arguing that. So let's get on to, all right, we got a a subject to talk about here. And it is the vaunted, yearly, perennial, you love it, you hate it, whatever. It's a part of Chicago. Talking about the Taste of Chicago. We mentioned earlier, this is a summer of festivals. There's all kinds of outside activities to do in Chicago, all kinds of places to go, food to eat, bands to hear. And by the way, Tony, did you? I did not go to the Taste of Chicago. I know that you went to the Taste of Chicago. I'm going to go next year, but
Right.
from everything I heard from everybody, like it's just heat packed upon people, rubbing bodies together, sweat. Like I don't know how that goes with food. I understand like a concert or something like that you go to for 2 hours, but you have gone to this. First of all, did you go for the music or did you go for the food? And did you even eat anything when you went?
Yeah, we ate a lot. Pizza and then everything. I mean, pretty much that was out there. I mean, it's kind of hard to eat too much because it gets really hot, and But yeah, we had a lot. Then we tried the different drinks, and then yeah, there was a lot of great bands.
Right.
Different genres.
Let's go through those bands. I know you went on the day. We'll mention the day that you went when we get to it. Let's start out with. I was super impressed by the turnout. I know last year James Brown went to the Taste of Chicago, performed at the Taste of Chicago, which is a quite impressive feat. We're talking about one of the rock and roll originals or R&B originals. So day one, it started on June 24th. It just ended on July 4th, a couple of days ago here. I don't know any of these opening bands. Five Chinese Brothers, Brian Scott, and Special Consensus. Have you heard of any of those bands?
No.
No. So me neither. Day two, the Grand Park Symphony Orchestra, Junior Brown, and I've heard this name, Trisha Yearwood, in country. So I would not pick to go that day either, but at least there's one person on that bill that you know, and I'm sure the orchestra was just fine. Sunday, June 25th, we've got Moonshine Willie, the Waco Brothers. Boy, the Waco Brothers. That sounds like, I don't know, I'm thinking of Waco, I'm like, what are they singing about? I'm guessing anti-government conspiracy songs, but unless it's their last name. And then Wiley and the Wild West. Have you heard of any of those bands?
No, they just sound like super hardcore blues groups.
Right. We get on to Diamond Rio, George Dukas, Jolyn Went, White. Okay, Tuesday, June 27th, though, we got two bands here, Poi Dog Pondering and Timbuk 3. I've heard of both of those bands, especially Poi Dog Pondering. What have you heard of those bands?
I've seen her, Poi Dog Pondering plays up the street from us, at the what is that,
Wild Hair?
No, they play it like up the street. They're kind of in that Waco Flaming Lips scene, like that whole Chicago, I don't know what you call it, college rock scene or something.
Alternative or a little bit of a jam band type thing.
But local, like the local, from here. So.
All right, now the next day for the Taste of Chicago, and by the way, the whole thing about gathering, this is the thing, I just want to say this real quick. I'm not big on festivals. And when you talk about going to the festival, try a little of this and that, you can do that. You don't have to go to a festival to try Lou Malnati's pizza or try, I don't know, my favorite rib place is Stevie B's Rib Cafe, one of my favorite places. By the way, we'll have on our next show, we'll go more into some of the hot spots here in Chicago to go to for all-night burritos if you want ribs, Euro sandwiches, Italian beef, pizza, Indian food, which Tony, you introduced me to Indian food. I'm craving it now. We'll go a little bit more into some of the hot spots to go to for food later, because food is a big thing in Chicago. But for Taste of Chicago, I just don't get the thing about, in 95-degree heat getting together and trying a bunch of different food outside Ohio.
It's hard to eat in that shit, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if, like, I don't know, all the bars had a little thing. They should, hey, try this drink we got or something like that. But, the food stuff, but whatever, it's a big touristy thing. I'll tell you what, I just want to stay the hell away from downtown. Anytime there's the biggest festivals, Taste of Chicago, even if there's a Cubs game, I'm not too far away from Wrigley Field. We're here in DePaul, Wrigley Field is not too far away, but, there's different things where you just kind of don't want to get caught in traffic, certainly if you're driving around. Tony, you more than me, I mean, we're both stick to more of like the train, especially the L, and which can get incredibly busy. I've been tried to get on the L to go places and had trains passing me by because it was too loaded with people. And if people stuck all the way to the end, they're looking at you like, don't try to get on this train. Or buses and so forth. So we're taking more public trans than driving, but, whatever. I still have I came here with a car and I'm keeping it. So, the next day though, in the Taste of Chicago, big time. They're talking about, these are all established 70s groups, which, Tony, you and I talked before the show. 70s rock is making a huge comeback. Some bands never left, but some bands are coming back. One band is Foghat. Foghat was on the bill. If you remember, I'm a Fool for the City and Slow Ride and songs like that. Badfinger, another band who were originally signed to Apple Records via Paul McCartney, who had that song, Wherever You Are, I Will Always Be With You. I don't know the title of the song. And the Edgar Winter Group, this basically, Edgar Winter Group, Frankenstein, Tony, that's one of your favorite songs. Free Ride. Right. This is basically, and you mentioned Dazed and Confused earlier, this is basically the soundtrack to Dazed and Confused, all put onto one bill. Right. I imagine there's some pot smoke wafting around the area in Chicago around this time. I'm wondering what the security or any of the police that are walking around, if they're enforcing any rules or letting people kind of party. You did not go during this day, right? Did you? You only went to see George Clinton? Yeah. Okay. By the way, what do you think of any of those bands? Badfinger, Foghat, Edgar Winter Group? I don't remember Badfinger, but Edgar Winter, I like Frankenstein. What else? Foghat's pretty good. Some of those bands are hit or miss. Yeah. Well, how about a specific question? Are there any 70s bands? And again, Pulp Fiction. Yeah. Great movie, has a very good 70s sound. That and Reservoir Dogs brought back, I never heard the song Stuck in the Middle of With You by Steelers Wheel. I never heard that song until that soundtrack. And by the way, that sounds about as American as you get. It sounds like a Bob Dylan ripoff. They're British. Foghat is British. When you hear Slow Ride, you're thinking American rock 100%. It's not. They're a British band. Yeah, I thought it was I thought it was another blue collar rock band, from the 70s, but it reminds me of if you remember the Outfield of the 1980s, sounded like classic American rock. They had All the Love in the World, All the Love in the World, and their big song was Josie's on a Vacation Far Away, saying, I Just Want to Use Your Love Tonight, which sounds like just a prototypical American song. They're a British band trying to sound American, which is funny because how many times have you heard a British band and the singer sings and he's like, I'm going down to the store today. But if you hear him talk, hey, I'm going down to the store today. Like, just the talking voice is so much different than the singing voice. Like the band Ministry, I thought Al Jurgensen was British. And great example. Now, Tony, have you been recently turned on to, is there any 70s groups that you've recently come to, even if you've heard of them, say, I mean, we were born mid-'70s. It's hard to be into the bands as they were coming out. But have you been turned on to any '70s bands recently because of this new movement of like '70s music coming back?
Right. Like being reintroduced stuff. Not really. I mean, I just more observe. Like, I guess maybe like punk, but mostly not really. I just, for me, I grew up, you know, in a pretty wild household, so I hear a lot of stuff, and now I just watch everybody, you know, in their 20s now getting turned on to music, you know, because of artists, you know, that they like, or they make references to, like Zeppelin and
Right.
the resurgence of Sabbath, you know, but I've always liked that shit, so it's nothing new to me.
Right. Gotcha. You know, they're going to, I've heard development is there's like a big Beatles special that they're going to do coming up on ABC, and they're going to hype this up big time, that they're even changing ABC's name to A Beatles C.
Yeah.
And I have had a resurgence in respect for the Beatles music, which when I was in high school, they're probably about the lamest band I could think of an older group.
Yeah.
But now, since I've heard especially since I've been in college, man, I went into dorm rooms where they're just blasting like I Am the Walrus and Strawberry Fields Forever and,
Right.
and some of the real tripped out hippie stuff from the later 60s. And I have to admit, I do have a newfound respect for the Beatles music, and again, especially their more psychedelic stuff. But there's so much going on musically. But
hey, man.
Anyway, yeah.
Hey, I gotta go to the bathroom seriously, and can we put a pause on this? Cause like my car died, and I was trying to text you so you wouldn't interrupt, but I got my car died, and I got to piss really bad. I didn't record at home, so I was trying to text you about it, but
Oh wow, okay, yeah. I'll tell you what. If you want to hang up, go ahead. I'm gonna finish the show. If you want to leave the studio, I guess, and go
cool.
go do that, it's gonna be a couple minutes. So go ahead. I'll finish your show.
All right,
okay.
Cool. Thanks, man. All right.
Sure.